like to call to order the agenda for Thursday, November 2nd, 2023, held at 7 p.m., Peabody City Hall, Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. This planning board meeting will be over public access TV. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of 10/5 and 10/19.
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the planning board minutes of October 19th, 2023. Oh, I don't have them. I'll revise that. Move approval of the minutes of the planning board meetings of October 5th and October 19th, 2023.
Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Please put me down as
Unanimous.
present for the last meeting, please. I wasn't here, so I can't.
A&R and Land Court, none on the agenda. Site building permit plan reviews for 0 Prospect Street continued from the 10/19/2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, just before Attorney Ankleys presents, I just wanted to make the board aware the crux of what this board had been waiting for was the final review from Engineering Department, Mr. Bob Langley. They have since received a memo entitled Closeout Memo from Bob Langley that was submitted to the board yesterday via email. We have hard copies here as well. It would be considered a late ad. We have also submitted on behalf of the Community Development Department a memo highlighting some other conditions that we would wish to set. These are conditions that we worked with Attorney Ankleys on and to make sure that this project benefits everybody and is a pretty good project. The Community Development Department is comfortable with an approval contingent upon the memo provided by Community Development and the memo provided by Mr. Bob Langley, both dated 10/31 or 11/1.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to receive as a late ad a memo from Robert Langley, Director of Engineering, in regards to 210 Andover Street, and it is dated November 1st. Additionally, I would move to receive a memo from Community Development, dated also November 1st, in regards to the same project. Move to receive.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to repeat too much of what has gone on in the past up to this point in time with regard to peer review, but I do want to confirm that we did have meetings with Bob Langley. We've gone over all of peer review, and we did have a meeting with Community Development, Kurt Bellavance, and Andrew, and the applicant has agreed to incorporate all of the requests and conditions of the reviewers, and in addition to that, the requests of Community Development, and finally, there was a request by the Office of the Mayor to incorporate a condition relative to continued use of the property, and we are more than willing to incorporate that as a condition of approval here tonight. If anyone would like to review any of the peer review or any of the issues or ask questions regarding the memos from Mr. Langley and or Community Development, I'd be happy at this point in time to answer any questions. Other than that, I just open it up to members of the board at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, if that's fine.
Anybody have any questions from the board?
I have one. Through the chair to Attorney Ankleys. Pretty sure everybody knows that there's an electrical easement that kind of runs right through where the hotel is planned to go. And your clients are ready to manage that and do a workaround, whether it go clockwise or counterclockwise around the building. And that'll be tended to, and the new easement will be filed.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
If I may. Attorney Yankley's, you mentioned future uses. Would that be covered by condition number 3 in the community development memo?
Condition number 3, which one do you?
It's not numbered. Any proposed change from the hotel use to any type?
Yes.
Okay, so that's covered.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, at this time I'll accept a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in the matter of 0 Prospect Street, also known as 210 Andover Street, residential inn, I believe it's going to be called, Residence Inn, I would move permit to issue with the following conditions. Conditions being laid out in a November 1st memo from Robert Langley, and there are 12 there, and 9 more conditions laid out in the November 1st memo from Community Development. So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Joseph Gagnon,
Yes.
Mr. Roy Simos,
Yes.
Mr. Matthew Genzali,
Yes.
Mr. John Ford,
Yes.
Attorney Mark Perlman,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas Betancourt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Next item on the agenda is 54 Prospect Street, map 51, lots 4, 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D.
Mr. Chairman, just before Attorney Kelty comes before the board, I'm sure he'll mention this as well. We have received back from 5054 Prospect Street a few of the third-party reviews. The applicant has received those. We have submitted them into the record, and they'll be available in the plan. They're digitally available right now, but they'll be available in the planning board's next packet for the next meeting.
So with that, we also, I think that Drew already informed you, we're waiting for the traffic to come back. We've got our others back, and I would expect, I'm requesting that we continue the matter till 11/16. That's your next meeting, correct? And I believe, all things being equal, we should be in a position to move forward that evening.
I move to allow the petitioner an extension of time until the meeting of the 16th.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Kelty. Next item on the agenda is 47 Prospect Street, map 75, lot 164. And that was carried on forward from the meeting of 10/19/23.
That is also my matter. In that matter, I'm respectfully requesting that we continue to 11/16. As an update, we have had the opportunity to meet directly Eastern Land Survey's representatives and myself with Mr. Langley. I think we've sort of culled out our path, and with that, I'm asking that we continue the matter till 11/16.
If I may ask Attorney Kelty a question. Jack, there's been some discussion about the retaining wall at the base of the hill by the credit union. Has there been any investigation or?
Yes, we've had a geotech engineer take a look at the wall. We've tried to cut some, there is an actual serpentine shape to the wall. It does look as though it's bowed out and is bulging. That's not the case, and we're going to have an engineer who actually built the well speak to that issue.
Thank you.
So through the chair to Attorney Kelty, two things. So the engineer is going to produce a drawing, right, and stamp it, and that'll be submitted here at some point? Okay. And secondly, do you really believe that you can get everything accomplished you need to get accomplished in 2 weeks, or should we push this out to the first meeting in December?
That meeting in December is your first and only, correct?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go to December 2nd, or
Oh,
what is it, December 7th? Pearl Harbor Day.
okay, so when we make the continuance, we're going to go to December 7th, is that correct? Thank you. No, I think you should, John.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to allow the petitioner an extension of time until the meeting of December 7th.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Kelty. Next item on the agenda is 28 Washington Street, map 95, lot 113. That was also continued from the meeting of 10/19/23.
And at that last meeting, we promised architecturals, elevations, and plans of the units that we're intending to build. I did file them electronically. I've given copies of that filing to the board, and I would ask that that matter be continued until 11/16, inasmuch as that review, which will now take place, is being done in-house, and it's a relatively small project, so I think we'll be ready on the 16th.
Mr. Chairman, in the matter of 28 Washington, I would move to allow the petitioner an extension of time until November 16th.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Kelty. Next item on the agenda is 8 Centennial Drive, map 091, lot 006.
That too is a project that I've been able to work on with our, the plan is presented, will be presented by Suze King of BL Companies. We are happy to say that we have via Zoom our VHB traffic folks, Steve Morris, Rustam Kawaji, John Pelletier, and Parker Strong are here this evening and will make the actual presentation. We're happy to go into whatever detail you would like. Again, we have engaged the usual suspects to conduct the peer review. That would be Ty and Bond, Horsley, Witten, and Weston and Sampson. We've executed the agreement, and I actually have the check this evening to give to Mr. Langley tomorrow. We'll be on our way with our peer reviews. But Steve Morris of Tishman Spire will actually kick off this project with you folks.
Thank you, Mr. Kelty.
Great. Well, thank you, Jack, and thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Again, I'm Steve Morris, developer for Tishman Spire, working on the 8th Centennial project. You're all probably familiar with this site. It's the analogic site on Centennial Drive. It was formerly before you guys as an Amazon distribution facility. We have since put the project under agreement with Analogic and working through a process of developing warehouse uses on site. As Jack mentioned, Tishman Speyer, we're the developer of the project. I'm joined with my colleagues here. We also have BL Companies and Suze King, who are the technical leads on the engineering and the architecture. Our transportation engineers are VHB. And we have Ann Martin from LAC, who's a wetlands engineer. On a page in there, I think there's a little background on us. Us as developers, we're been in Boston for 30 some odd years. Most of it is in the office, residential, and downtown tower space. We're really excited that last year we launched a new industrial initiative and platform. And this project at 8 Centennial actually marks our first industrial development in our company's history. So we're tremendously excited about that. Some other pages, I think 4 and 5 is an aerial and existing conditions of the site. Analogic has owned and operated on the site for 30 or 40 years. The site's improved by about 500,000 square foot office and manufacturing space, 1,300 parking spaces, and 4 curb cuts. If you flip to page, I can present on it, and if the board's here. I think it's the same materials. If you flip to page 6, you can kind of get a sense of what our proposed redevelopment of the site looks like, which is a 710,000 square foot warehouse development. That square footage is split across 4 buildings, kind of breaking down the size and the massing of the buildings. And really our plan here is to proceed on a speculative basis, meaning we don't have a tenant in mind. We'd start construction and have tenants coming to us and lease. And what really attracted us to this site is obviously its location, right off 128-95, close to Boston. It's going to be really attractive to a lot of industrial users. And the reason we broke down the buildings in this way is to kind of make it so that more users and more companies can occupy the space. It's not a big building that the Targets or Walmarts or Lowe's or Home Depots of the world would come and take all of it. What we really wanted to do is break it down to appeal to the smaller tenants, the ones who have been boxed out by those big box tenants, so to speak. A local distribution facility that, your local tile company who needs a warehousing space, things like that. We also think there's an appeal to tough tech users, which is kind of a term that's come in vogue lately, which is, battery companies, semiconductor companies. So what we really want to create here is an interesting distribution and innovation ecosystem that's probably going to be a mix of warehouses, maybe some light manufacturing and things of that nature. You can see on the site we have the 4 buildings oriented around the trucks and loading docks. There's 700 parking spaces, so a big reduction in vehicle parking. Obviously, we have loading docks and some trailer storage. And we've actually cut down the curb cuts from 4 to 3, kind of all along Centennial Drive. In terms of the timing, I'm sure you guys will obviously have questions on the specifics of the plan, but in terms of timing, we're under agreement with Analogic. They still own the site. We'll probably close and, start the process sometime in Q2. Once we close, they'll have a year or so, let's say, to relocate out of their facility. We've talked with them about keeping a piece of their business here on the site in Peabody. Those discussions are ongoing. So during that year, they'll be, moving their business or relocating people, and then we would start construction on a phased basis, probably in 2025. And so that would involve just, pretty much obviously demolishing the building, leveling the site, kind of getting it to its final grade. And then we'll start on buildings kind of on a periodic basis. We might start on 2 of the buildings and the others might lag 6 to 9 months. So it'll probably be about a 2.5 year construction period with the buildings delivering in 2026 to 2027. So I think that's kind of just covers the bases. Obviously, we have a lot of the technical leads here who can answer more specific questions you might have about the project. But again, we're really excited to be in front of this body today and welcome all the feedback and questions you guys may have to really make this site a great business park and a good place for businesses to grow.
Thank you. Would you like someone else to present any other part of this, or?
Now, we thought it might be helpful, open up to questions. Obviously there's comprehensive drawing sets. We could speak a lot about utilities, this, site infrastructure, landscaping, but thought maybe you guys can, we have the technical leads here to answer questions, anything you guys might have.
At this time, do we have any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, if I could just really quickly, I just want to state that we have met with the applicants and their quite extensive team here for our construction review. meeting that was attended by different city departments. As you could figure, this project will have to receive peer review on many of the items for engineering, so that is getting figured out as we speak. Second to that, community development had spoken with the developer and the applicants here, and had chatted about a few things on the site. Mainly, really large site. We want to see a little bit more of pedestrian movement on the site and safety, sidewalks, maybe also somewhere for workers on the site to have some sort of open space or walkability as well. We want to see snow storage labeled on there as well, and some other items that we've chatted with them too. But this is a very large project. I think this is going to be quite an extensive review, and I think there'll be probably multiple meetings about this, but we did ask the applicant to come here, and rather than get into the nitty-gritty of everything, present the project as shown right now, and then allow the board to ask their questions upon seeing this.
Any questions from the board?
All these buildings, one level?
There'll be a little bit of grade change across the site, but nothing too dramatic.
And when I think warehouse, I think storage, and you mentioned manufacturing.
There might be some light manufacturing here. It'd probably be a small portion of the site. It's primarily going to be warehouse and distribution users.
Do you have any idea on truck traffic at this time?
We have generated a report, and obviously Amazon did a full traffic study a couple of years, 18 months ago. So there's a memo in the materials with our traffic counts, truck counts, and things like that. We also did so we have the generative data, which is using industrial park code, which I think is the typical terminology, and that kind of has the mix of manufacturing and, warehouse uses in there. We also did counts about a month ago of the existing site, so we'll supplement the materials we've already submitted with those counts and compare them to the projections for the proposed project.
And more than likely, this would be a 24/7 operation once everything's complete.
Perhaps. I mean, we're not exactly sure the exact users. It's certainly not going to be like a high frequency last mile distribution facility as compared to maybe what Amazon had previously proposed. It's going to be more typical users, warehousing and storage.
And you could actually have 4, 5, 6 leasees, correct?
We think it could be upwards of a dozen. We think each building we kind of set up, the bigger buildings are probably 2 to 3, the smaller buildings are maybe 5 to 6.
All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. A few things. I don't know anything about commercial or industrial real estate, but you must. So
A little bit.
it just seems that that level of higher level quality of that park, it's kind of just wondering about a warehouse, 4 warehouses going there. I like it better than Amazon. One of the things about Amazon, though, as it pertains to traffic, is that I think the only way that got approved in this city was that trailers come in the middle of the night and be off-site by 6 a.m. And then they weren't going to let the upwards of 1,000 vans leave in waves and only starting at 10 a.m. So it didn't conflict with school buses, people going to work, commuters cutting through the park and stuff. So I do like the fact that it looks like somebody took some effort to shield the loading docks from Centennial. That's the first time I've seen, this rendering that's here in front of us. So I guess progress, right? So that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just a question about storage. Do we need to be concerned about some things that will be stored? For example, like anything combustible or anything hazardous or to that effect, something of danger?
I mean, again, we're not exactly sure of the users, but, this certainly isn't going to be any kind of life science facility that, people have seen coming up across the region. Any user who occupies the space will certainly need to get all the appropriate permits for combustible storage and things like that. So there will be that layer, and as we're going to deliver these buildings in core shell condition. So any user who comes in to fit out their space and what they're going to store will have to get a permit, another building permit from the department to do all their fit outs and everything. So there will be another tier and layer of review on that.
Excuse my ignorance, but is this storage sort of like the typical storage you see everywhere? You store, you get someone cleaning out a house or moving or whatever, that type of stuff? Or is it more commercial, industrial storage for the Centennial Park area and beyond?
It's more industrial storage for
Okay.
companies, who, again, if you're to use an example, like a local tile company, your tile comes off and lands in Boston, you come and store it here, your vans come, pick it up and drive to the various job sites. So more commercial,
I see what you mean.
people storage,
Oh, all
but
right.
more kind of just a distribution point.
Okay.
Not as high frequency as certainly
Now I
Amazon with their
understand.
armies of trucks.
Yeah, more of a distribution, like you said, where,
Correct.
okay, I understand, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Through the chair. The only thing I was going to add was that if an individual tenant is dealing with combustibles, then we would need to either get special permit or the appropriate permits from the fire department.
Through the chair. Jack, I know there were conversations when we were having the Amazon discussion. I mean, this is zoned what, IP? This is IP zoning, is that what it is, Drew? And that includes, I guess, requiring manufacturing, assembly, processing, or handling of materials, and associated office facilities. How are we making a distinguishment between, I guess, exactly what handling of materials means? Is that considered to be warehousing? Is that considered to be last mile? I know we had this discussion, and I don't know if we gained clarity previously, but all the uses that the presenter mentioned are, it's nice. It's great to bring manufacturing and industry to the area, but I'd like to, at some point, understand exactly what our zoning, as it pertains to processing or handling of materials, means as it relates to potentially a tile warehouse or things like that, because I don't interpret the zoning to necessarily be very straightforward in that. So I'm wondering how many of these uses are allowed by right or by special permit as opposed to not knowing.
Yeah, I think for anything that goes in front of there, the building department was at this meeting as well. We've chatted with the developer and the applicant about what the building permit process will be like. Each individual tenant is going to require a building permit to be pulled to build out what they need. So at that point, that use will have to be disclosed, and if it's not by right, you'll have to seek a special permit from the city
Yeah,
council.
I mean, I would just hate to get, I would hate for the applicant to get to a point where we've got 700,000 square foot, total buildings constructed, and then we're going to pull our first building permit, and it's not a use that's allowed, and for their sake, it would seem like we should gain some clarity prior to our board's approval about those uses or whatnot before we're waiting all the way until these 4 buildings are constructed and the first tenant's trying to pull a 10,000 square foot, building permit. It would seem a bit, I don't know, seem a bit hasty to go through this, multi-million dollar project without gaining some information there. So I don't know who's done the research, Jack, maybe you already have, but I'd like to know how we plan to get all these.
I think as the project advances, we will get a sense of, right now, the anticipated use of all the buildings is similar to the other folks up in the park they refer to themselves these days as logistics. And so the material stays for a very brief time, it's assembled and then shipped out. As our tenant list is, as our opportunity is responded to, then as Andrew has said, and we see what the actual user is, it may be that that party needs special permit. We'll work that through the special permit process. But if someone were to come and want to do office, although an allowed use, the building won't suit. If it's completed, it won't suit offices. So we expect that the tenant list will be predominantly logistics type and style. And if a party needs, because of what they're shipping, storing, warehousing, if it requires a special permit, then we will seek the special permit.
Okay, I mean, if you don't mind, I know we're probably going to see each other several times. Could you just kind of over the coming meetings, maybe start to expand on that a little bit for my own education as you come back? Could you start to do a little bit of research on that and instead of like, you know, just gradually over the course of all this process, maybe, you know, expound on that a bit for me? And then just generally asking, I mean, if your all's specialty is residential and office space, I'm certainly happy that you're choosing anywhere, you know, to bring anything to the city of Peabody. We appreciate that. But had you considered doing any, you know, sort of mixed use or staying within your specialty here?
I think, you know, given that the location of the site and the strength of, you know, industrial users, it's, you know, obviously everyone, as everyone knows, we all have a lot of boxes on our doorsteps more than we did 5 years ago. So it's a real need for a lot of these companies. So, you know, the idea here certainly was not to do mixed use. We think the highest and best use for the site and the most, you know, way to generate the most, you know, tax revenue employees is certainly through this distribution use, or logistics use, I should say. And I think we're really excited, you know, to have a plan that's not one big building. That's a lot of what people have been doing for the last couple of years. And really appealing to users who, you know, are frankly probably have been priced out by the big box users and are in smaller, you know, worse buildings that don't suit their needs. So we think there's a really strong, and we can certainly expand on those kind of users. We certainly have examples. We have a huge list that we track of who they are, what they do. Not that we're going to lease to them because they're looking for space like tomorrow, but just to give you a flavor.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I only brought that up because I know it was a fairly hot button conversation about whether or not the Amazon last mile was a distribution facility, a warehouse. You know, what was it? Whenever we hear that stuff is being stored there, or certainly, I know that was something that we were trying to gain clarity on last time with the city solicitor when they were presenting. So it would be great to know once and for all, maybe before we vote on this project, whenever that is on your timeline, you know, what exactly we're up against. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing the project to us.
Mr. Chairman, another question. So you're building these 4 large buildings, and your idea is if you build it, they will come, so to speak, stealing a line from the movie. And you're reducing the parking from 1344 to 711. So my question is this something along the way, if they find a tenant that is more used by vehicles and so forth, is there some way that we can keep track of whether they need additional parking? For example, and I'm not saying you're going to do that, say Amazon wants a building and they got all kinds of cars coming in and out or whatever, and instead of the 7-Eleven, you know, realistically you should have 1,000 spaces. Is this something that we have control of somehow, that if they're, in other words, if they're putting 10 pounds of sardines in a 5-pound can, is there a way that we can adjust the parking situation if need be? I guess that's a Drew question.
I think at the moment right now, this is built out as warehouse. I also think that the applicants here, we've talked a little bit about who's going to own this and property and such, but I would not believe that, or I believe that whoever is the owner of this would be looking at these types of items. We've tried it, I should have brought up as well. We talked at the community, at the construction review committee meeting about that. This is creating quite a large campus type style area. And if you look at it, as mentioned, there's 2 roadways, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 2 outside curb cuts are going to be trucks only. We asked that everything possible be done to make that these roadways, and I'm calling them roadways, they're driveways, but that these act as roadways, that you feel that, it's just an extension of the road when you're in there. Something that we don't want to see from the city side are tractor trailers just parked on the side of the road, items being left out and things of that nature. And, we've mentioned this to the applicants as well, so they've also agreed that they know that's not something that they're looking for. But to your point about parking, they would have, they're building out using the warehouse use right now for IP, so they would have to follow what the IP parking regulations are.
Right, so, and to get back to my original point, is that as far as the parking, there is some sort of insurance in there that, because they don't know who the tenant is, it could be anybody. And like I said, if they require more parking than it's available, we should have some sort of assurance or insurance that we can make that, we can require them to provide additional parking spaces. That's my whole point. And again, I don't know what the future's gonna hold. You're gonna be before us many times, and we'll discuss this. But I just wanna make sure there's enough parking spaces, and like I think Drew alluded to, you know, you don't want people parking on the main drag out there and so forth. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think I can speak to that issue. If you look closely at our zoning ordinance, we have a kind of a sliding scale with respect to maximum spaces, minimum spaces. We've designed based on square footage of the building, and we have not exactly chosen the maximum. However, there is space if the need arises to be at the maximum level. And we also have based it on square footage in order to create a large area of green space. And to your point, if the need arose, we could come back and amend a plan to create more parking. But we're really at the maximum, not, but in accordance with the zoning ordinance.
And just one thing I'll add, and Drew alluded to it, you know, we'll have 4 buildings, potentially a dozen companies here. We got to set up rules, literal rules of the road and, you know, figurative ones of how everyone plays in the sandbox. So we're certainly going to set up some kind of easement agreement as between all the buildings. Obviously, some buildings, you know, some users in some buildings might use less parking, right? And so they can certainly walk across the park, which I think is, there's flexibility in the plan for parking and where people go. So certainly, I think you're right. Some users might have more than their allotment, some might have less. So something we're gonna have to set rules about in some kind of legal framework between each of the buildings, between the park. Obviously, we'll have to have easements with the fire department to make sure that they can get through the site appropriately and everything that involves.
Any other questions from the board?
I thought of one more. I assume a project of this size would have an on-site active manager, right?
It's certainly going to be the plan.
40 to 48 hours a week, managing the tenants, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and not doing what they're not. Okay.
Certainly. Maybe a handful. I mean,
What's that?
There may be a handful of on-site property managers and engineers for the buildings.
Yeah, okay. So along 2 of the buildings adjacent or nearby to the loading docks, it looks like you have extra long spaces. I assume those are for extra truck parking?
Are you on the very ends of each of the?
Yeah, they, like on building B, they mirrored right across from the loading docks, and then on building A,
Yep.
they're along the left side.
Yep.
So those are like
Trailer storage.
Trailer
So a lot of users will need, you know, to store their trailers, and they can back them in.
Yeah.
Take it off the truck and kind of drive off.
Right, but I guess if there's some tenant that shows up and wants to buy or rent 25% of a given building, but only needs 1 loading dock and not 8,
Yeah.
then maybe his allocated spaces across from those can be turned into car parking spaces.
Potentially, but
Something like that.
Certainly, there's paved area to convert.
Flexibility.
There's flexibility, yes. I think to Jack's point, we would need to to go through approvals to convert those to parking, just so it's all.
Okay, but all the loading docks and all those auxiliary truck parking spaces aren't part of the 7-Eleven, are they?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
This item would probably be, well, not probably, needs to be continued. I would not believe you're going to have items back by the next meeting. I did mention to the applicants at the Construction Review Committee meeting that where this project is so large and it does require quite extensive review for all aspects of this, that it might make the most sense that as peer reviews come back, for the meetings, maybe one or two of each report would be brought before the board and discussed rather than trying to discuss everything all at once when they all come back. That might make it easier. So for say one meeting be a traffic meeting, one meeting be stormwater and such. But this is, like I said, a large project. Will be undergoing peer review, and that I'm sure these projects or these plans will be changing and different things will be happening throughout.
Thank you, Drew.
Sure, we would, and I guess to your point, it makes no sense to be here 2 weeks. So I would ask that we at least revisit where we are at the December meeting. And if it turns out that we really have nothing back, then we'll move it again.
You want an extension of time?
Yes.
I'm not really sure you need it, but move to grant the petitioner in regards with 8 Centennial Drive, an extension of time until December 7th, 2023.
Second.
Have a second? All those in favor? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 140 Summit Street, map 095, lot 8.
For the record, my name is John Kelty, 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. Attorney representing Christian Book Distributors. With me this evening are Mike Shunter, David Robinson. Mike Shunter is from the ownership entity. Dexter Preston from Daycon. Julian Santos from the ownership entity, and Mike Shunter. We're happy to present, and this project is Christian Book Distributors located at 140 Summit Street. They have been there for some period of time since the 80s, and over the period of time they've added on to the building and built additions. This addition is, which will be explained to you by our engineers, but this addition is kind of an infill in the sense that the building being somewhat L-shaped, we are opting to put the addition in the center rather than on the outskirts. And the reason for that is we are surrounded, or at least two sides, by the Goldwaith Brook. And in order to not get any closer to the brook and not interfere at all with the brook, we will develop the addition within the kind of an infill project. I'm happy to introduce Mike Shunter to the board.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Jack. Board, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. We do have some, like Jack mentioned, we do have some very key members of the team here tonight, and I think we want to give a little bit of time for each of those members to touch on the presentation to really give a good general overview of what this project is, the purpose of this project, and the thoughtfulness that has gone into the design with the package that we have submitted. So again, real quick, my name is Mike Shunta. I am with Oliver Street Capital, who is the owner and applicant at 140 Summit Street. With one member here tonight, Mr. Julian Santos is with Christian Books. This project is really been cultivated with a collaboration and a partnership between both of us. While we are the owner, we are doing this addition for Christian Books' existing operation that they have at the facility. So with that, I would like to introduce Julian, just to give a quick summary of the campus at 140 Summit, a little bit of the history, and then talk about the purpose of this addition that we are proposing in front of the board. So Julian?
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. I'm Julian Santos. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Christian Book. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the company. Christian Book has been in business now for over 45 years. It comes from a long history of the Hendrickson's family having a startup business over 45 years ago. And over the years, they came into a smaller building in Peabody. And they continue to grow over time, year over year. And essentially, 28 years ago, Ray Hendrickson ended up building at 140 Summit Street for the existing facility. We're currently 370,000 square foot. And the outside storage that the company has as well, we have a rental facility in Peabody at the Centennial Park for 54,000 additional square feet. So the plan to expand our facility, our main building at 140, is essentially to accomplish a couple of things. So one thing is to bring all the storage space together, all under one roof. Oops. There you go. And also so while having all the inventory under the same roof and making ease of access to anything we need and we buy from across the country, we bring the product in to store in-house and at the storage building. So as we bring all this together, we're also preparing for growth. So the plan is to replace the 54,000 existing external storage building with an in-house 82,000 plus square feet at our facility. So we're really proud to be here. I think this is a moment that it's been anticipated by the family from a long time ago, so they had this vision, and we're truly happy to be in front of this board today. Any questions for me?
Have any questions from the board? Yes.
Probably an obvious question and a stupid question, but you storing pretty much books in there? What are you storing in there? It's got to be more than books, right?
Essentially, we carry about 130,000 items with inventory on hand any given day. The vast majority of it is exactly that. It's books and Bibles. We're the #1 distributor for books and Bibles in the country. We have seasonality across our buildings, our business. So we have, thousands of products for Christmas seasons, homeschooling. So we offer a lot of educational material as well, but the vast majority of it is books and Bibles. We currently employ about 600 associates across the company, and we have a good portion of our teams working remotely in different areas, procurement and marketing, web design, and so forth. But about 3/4 of our teams are working in-house, and there's a small portion working in a hybrid schedule, coming in-house for 3 days and working remotely for 2 days.
Any other questions from the board?
Please. Do you have an engineer with you tonight, or?
Yes, I do.
I have a stormwater runoff question for your engineer, please.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is David Robinson. I'm a project manager with Allen and Major Associates. We are the civil engineer, land surveyor, and landscape architect for the petition before you this evening. As noted, this is the Christian Book Building Addition project. It's located at 140 Summit Street. It's about a quarter of a mile south of exit 38 and is located just south of Centennial Drive. The site is a 28.3 acre developed site with a 206,000 square foot existing building. There was a building addition at the bottom portion of the building that was completed in 2016. This building addition is going to be similar in construction, aesthetics, design, and the roof height is going to match the existing elevation, so it's not going to stick up above the existing building. There's also plenty of open space around the site. There's wetlands, wooded areas, Goldthwaite Brook to the southwest of the building, and we are going to be reducing the parking by about 13 stalls. The purpose of that parking reduction is to expand one of the existing stormwater basins on site to provide a little bit more capacity for the increase in impervious area of the building addition that we're locating in a currently grassed field. We're also going to be proposing some landscaping at the face of the building addition. You can see some of the trees on the color plan. There's landscaping along the retaining walls for the loading docks, which are recessed by about 4 feet. And we're also infilling pretty much the only area along Summit Street that currently doesn't have an existing vegetated buffer. You can see those trees right along Summit Street. So we're providing a nice landscape buffer to help screen this building. In addition to the expansion of the existing stormwater basin, we're also proposing a subsurface infiltration system at the southerly loading dock. That's primarily to provide water quality and recharge groundwater back to the groundwater table. I should note that we've also filed a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission, and they will be reviewing the stormwater as well as the erosion control for the site. The majority of the utilities servicing the building are going to be made internally. There's internal connections for the fire protection, water line, and the architect Dacon can get into that more. We really only have sewer utility, an easy sewer connection at the northern part of the building. There's 2 loading docks proposed with 3 and 4 stalls for the northern and southerly portions. Those are going to be recessed docks. And there's going to be flush curbing at the entrance to each one of those loading docks. We also did a lighting photometric study. We're going to propose wall-mounted lighting all around the building to illuminate the existing truck driveway as well as the loading docks. And we did look at the existing lighting, the parking lighting, and no additional lighting is required for the building addition. Yeah, I think that's pretty much most of the overview for the site expansion. Oh, and one thing I should mention is that the truck circulation is the trucks come into the site via Summit Street. That's the only access for the site, and it's a one-way counterclockwise around the building. So they come in from Summit Street, they head to the right, they go all the way south of the building, and then park at the existing truck court on the right-hand side of the building. So to access the southerly loading dock, the trucks will come in, head south down the access drive, and then back into the southerly loading dock. For the northerly loading dock, they need to go all the way around the building, all the way around the parking lot to the north, drive past that northerly loading dock, and then back in. And to provide security during that time, we're proposing a guard shack with 2 clearance arms that are shown on the plan to halt any traffic at the time that those trucks are backing into the northerly loading dock. I think that's a pretty good site overview for the site items. I don't know if we want to get into some of the interior architectural, just kind of the building layout, how it's going to look, how it is in harmony with the existing building, and it's just an addition placed, kind of the final piece of of the puzzle, if you will, or if you'd like to go to site comments at this time in discussion.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question, a couple, through the chair. So that the west elevation is obviously really significantly the only elevation that really means anything, in my opinion, because it's the whole length of it faces the street. It sounds like they're gonna be just prefabricated concrete panels that'll get delivered to the site, or is this like tilt-up construction? Or, I'm just wondering, is it just gonna be like gray concrete with that one?
Good evening, Dexter Preston with Dacon, project architect for this. To answer the question directly, the panels will be precast panels. They are insulated, prefabricated concrete panels. They are delivered in stacks and erected on site. They are a series of panels that will match the aesthetic of the existing building, which is masonry. All the reveals are going to be set into the precast to match the existing building facade, aesthetics, colors, etc. So those will all be done, and they are roughly 8 feet wide modular panels.
Okay, thank you, that's one of them. And I guess the other one is, I noticed that the original building and then the addition and now this addition, there's no solar. Is there any anticipation of putting just in the new addition?
I am not aware, but I can review to see if the 2016 edition that Dacon did construct was structurally engineered for solar. I'll look into that.
Yeah, because usually you have to make up for the weight of the ballast and the
But
panels.
this edition will be solar ready.
Okay, very good. And I'm not sure if this would be for you, but it seems logical, I guess, that where you have I don't know, I think you said 54,000 square foot rental space in Centennial, and you're in essence bringing it in here and then have 30+ thousand extra. It seems that might actually reduce some traffic on the roads, right? That,
Absolutely.
you know, some trucks going to have to leave empty from where it is, go to the warehouse to come here, so that'll stop, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, if I may, we did meet with the applicant and their team for a construction review committee meeting. We discussed this plan with them. Pretty straightforward plan with what they're proposing here. Just some items that I thought maybe Roy kind of brought it up here, but I was going to ask that we did bring up the idea that, wow, this is an 80,000 square foot addition, what is the traffic going to look like on this? But what we've been told, and I don't know if you want to speak to this or not, but the traffic trips are not what you would be expecting from this, because it is kind of taking over another use that they already have in a different location.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Board. Appreciate it.
Do we want to carry this to the very next meeting, or I'd like to.
Yeah, very next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to allow the petitioner for Christian Books to continue this presentation until the meeting of the 16th, November 16th, 2023.
Thank you very much.
Have a second? Have a second? Second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hearing none, other matters probably before the board.
Mr. Chairman, on request of the board at their last meeting, I did reach out to our Assistant City Solicitor Elizabeth Lashway on the exact definition there of adjudicatory hearing. Attorney Lashway sent me back quite the article here, but what it really boils down to is under its definition in Master General Law 30A, Section 1.1, it is a proceeding before an agency in which the legal rights, duties, or privileges of specifically named persons are required by constitutional right or by any provision of the general laws to be determined after opportunity for an agency hearing. Furthermore, I just want to make sure I get down to there. In reading of the Mullen case, I just want to get to the exact point here. So I had asked about, something along the lines of a site plan review, and in Attorney Lashway's response, she had stated that a non-discretionary site plan review is not an adjudicatory hearing. So from what I'm reading, and she's, said that she'd be happy to answer any questions we have in regards to that this comes up, but I think to everybody's point, the adjudicatory hearing would be something of the nature of a public hearing for anything rather than what we've had, this meeting this evening.
So public hearings only.
From what I'm understanding from her interpretation and what she's provided with me, I would say that's correct. But I think if we were to ever come across this issue and it's been, brought up, I think, we have a great resource to reach out to.
Mr. Chairman?
What I was going through before, try to explain it, that recently we've been not closing public hearings. Basically, the first meeting with presentation where we give the public the right to speak and talk about specific things and put in their view, get all the comments, any letters that are brought in to by people involved in the project, people who are affected by the project. That is all recorded on that first meeting. And then that meeting should be closed and we continue the project through the stages until completion. And I believe in my interpretation from the past, and like I said, I'm an antique, my interpretation from the past is that public hearings should be closed after that first meeting. And that's the meeting in which you don't intend, you would have to submit that you reviewed in all the documentation of that meeting and all the response, put it in a letter and submit it before you're allowed to vote on that project in the future.
So, Mr. Chairman, does that mean that the public hearing is just for what it says, public comment for or against, and then when you close it, we would then just have a normal site plan review as we did tonight a couple times?
That feature. So that was my interpretation, and I just wanted to make sure that City Council clarified that, and we understand that once the public and all the participants have the opportunity to submit their documentation, submit any people for it, any people against, any letters that are submitted to the board that couldn't meet the meeting, all are accepted and as part of that public record. That's what I consider the adjudicatory portion of that project.
Mr. Chairman?
Mine's on, you want to?
I can just speak loud enough.
Yeah, mic's on. Here you go.
Mine works. It's on now. Try again.
Is it possible or even likely that the substance of the project before us is going to be developed after you close the public hearing? And if you miss all of those meetings, it seems to me that you're going to be in a poor position to participate in the final decision. So you may be right, but it doesn't make sense to me that you can miss all the meetings except the public hearing at which the substance may not even emerge.
But basically, each time a petitioner comes back, after the adjudicatory meeting, he's supposed to go through a review process of what the prior meeting was, okay? And it's up to a board member that if it's not present, to read the minutes, and that would be considered acceptable, because each part is a review of the previous, and not necessarily the presentation of the total project, which is the adjudicatory portion of the meeting. Does that make sense?
Somewhat, but I still think that, you know, in my experience, I've been on this board a long time, and we haven't had that many subdivisions, but things at these subsequent meetings after the public hearing closes are presented to us that sometimes are different than what was presented at the public hearing. I mean, would we agree on that? And if you, I would think that you would have to review the minutes of all the meetings, even after the public hearing closes, so that you have a basis for making a decision, final decision on the proposal. That's just how I would interpret it.
I think this law is formulated to cover the public hearing. In years past, we've always just had one public hearing and we closed it, that was it. There was apparently something came up on a vote that someone should not be allowed to vote, and they did vote because they did not attend the public hearing. I don't think this tool, this law, is going to cover everything. As a board member, you should be reviewing all your information that we've had before us. If you miss a meeting, you should go through your packet and check it out. Go to the site, check it out. I think the purpose of this law is to cover the public hearing portion, and just not have somebody fly in, okay, I'm going to vote on this, and I wasn't even here for square one. So that's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman? We're talking about the Mullen Rule tonight and quorums and so forth. I think it's important that we also make mention that we're down a board member, aren't we? Are we down one? Well, I think it's important that we get that filled as soon as possible. And it's been a very long time since we've been at full capacity with board members and 2 alternates. And this would certainly circumvent any kind of a Mullen Rule or a question about a quorum in the future. So I would ask that we communicate that further up the line so we can get that person on board.
I've already requested that through the mayor, and I already requested one of the board members that wasn't showing up what her status was, and she has resigned. And doing that, my conversation with the mayor was that I'd like a full board, including the 2 alternates. So I guess he's working on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what that means is that we're actually down a regular member and an alternate member, so we're down 2 positions now. So I think it's important that we move along with this as quickly as we can. There's got to be someone out there that wants to consider sitting on the board for a time.
I said I would really like a civil engineer, if we could possibly get one. And maybe an architect, if we could possibly get one.
So just so I'm a little more educated on this, Is anything we did tonight a public hearing? No, these are site plan reviews, in essence. Okay. Right. Right. Yeah, I know we've always done that with subdivisions, that we need to be careful when we have the public hearing, such that there's enough people at that you can afford to have one person be absent for some reason, they're sick or whatever, and then you can't have a proper vote because you don't have enough people. So, okay. Yes, okay.
Is that person who didn't meet the public hearing, as long as he's certified on a document that he reviewed all of the three different methods of
He
review?
only missed one. He can only miss one meeting.
The public hearing?
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
The
Yes.
rest of them are considered continuations, and not of the public hearing, continuations of the project.
Right. But for instance, the 8th Centennial, the 140 Summit Street, right? They're all coming back,
Yeah,
maybe more than once.
maybe 20 times.
Well, maybe not 20,
Because
come
they're,
on. You never know. But, so, if somebody missed this meeting tonight for, say, 8th Centennial or 140 Summit, they can still review the minutes of tonight and be eligible to vote.
yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, and I would say that the reason is that these are not adjudicatory hearings, site plan review, excuse me.
This is a site plan review, not an adjudicatory hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Accept the
Motion to adjourn.
favor, unanimous, thank you.